Well, it's hard for me to, I mean, I would ask you this question. Does it not appear to you that Tamara is a political prisoner? Because right now it certainly appears, I think, to most Canadians that that's the situation. I practiced criminal law for 10 years, and I never have seen a situation where somebody that is charged for instigating mischief is treated so seriously. I've seen people with very serious crimes that won't even be extradited between one province and another because of the cost associated with it. And here we have the government really trying to make an example of her, and I don't think that's helpful at all.
You know, I'll tell you, I don't think Albertans are concerned about horse dewormer or vaccine conspiracy theories. I think Albertans are concerned about bread and butter, mom and pop issues.
Adam Soos here for Rebel News, and we are on location at the Calgary South MLA's Stampede Breakfast here at the Trico Centre in Calgary. And we've actually already, as soon as we arrived, had the opportunity to talk to lots of politicians here as well as some leadership candidates. So we're going to be bringing you some great exclusive footage and interviews from this incredible Stampede Breakfast. So let's get right to it. So first off, great to see you advocating for business here. Many people, in fact, happy with your performance on business. Also, many sort of praising you for, despite the fact you passed that leadership vote, deciding that you didn't have enough support to move forward. We have heard concerns from many, though, that you're still sort of hanging on to power and that perhaps you're influencing the leadership race moving forward. What is your response to those sort of allegations? There's a sour grapes crew that I expect that from. I'm not endorsing a candidate. Nobody in my office is working on a campaign. But I'm here to maintain continuity and stability, the momentum of Alberta. We're leading the country in economic and job growth. We're knocking the lights out on diversification. We've balanced the budget for the first time in 8 years. The Heritage Fund is bigger than ever. More people are working than ever in history. We've delivered on 90% of our campaign commitments. More work has to be done. Next week, I'll be at the Premier's meeting, and I've got years of relationships that are useful for Alberta. That's how one of the reasons I got all 9 other provinces to join us at the Supreme Court of Canada in the critical fight against the No More Pipelines Law, Bill C-69. My recent trips to Washington are based on long-term relationships that I have, where I'm adding value by opening some of the top doors on Capitol Hill and in Washington for more Alberta oil experts. I'll be on the road doing international investment promotion trips, again, using a lifetime of connections that I've developed in Canadian political leadership. So I'm going to give all I've got to this province while I'm in this position, and I'll let other people deal with politics. We've certainly seen you doing great work, Senator Manchin, advocating for that. What is sort of your biggest hope or biggest aspiration, or what you think might need to be done first for this province to move forward to heal? Not necessarily for you to guide new leadership, but what do you think Albertans are calling for most?
You know, I'll tell you, I don't think Albertans are concerned about horse dewormer or vaccine conspiracy theories. I think Albertans are concerned about bread and butter, mom and pop issues. Want to make sure that this amazing economic recovery is durable, that we are diversifying the economy while also growing oil and gas, that we maintain a degree of fiscal discipline and don't blow out these surpluses like we have in the past, and that we fight for a strong Alberta. Just as we are and will be at the Supreme Court of Canada on our successful challenge of the Trudeau No More Pipelines Law.
Awesome. Thanks so much. I really appreciate it.
You're stalking me, man.
How are you doing?
I'm doing very well. How are you?
So one of the questions that we've often been faced is, can a Liberal from Quebec really get something done? But your points on the Alberta Accord, speaking to the fact that Alberta hasn't gotten a fair deal, I think is actually resonating with people. And I think Albertans are very open to ideas more than judging people based on maybe where they're from or their background. How important do you think it is to get that deal done, to get something done so that Alberta feels recognized?
There's one place in Canada where Canadians judge people on their ideas and what they do as opposed to their name, where they're from, or where they're studied. It's Alberta. And that's been my experience. And what I want to bring to Alberta is the recognition and respect that Albertans deserve in this federal system of ours. And it is a federal system. It's designed that way because it's a different reality in every province. I want an Alberta Accord that says to Albertans, you're going to get a fair deal in equalization. You know what? You want to run your pension plan? You should run your pension plan. It's good for Quebec. Why would you not do it? You want an immigration agreement? You should have it because you're the best ones to decide who it is you should bring in for the needs that in your labor market. It shouldn't be decided in Ottawa. Ottawa's a bubble. And it proves to be a bubble every day, frankly, under the Trudeau government. So that's where I'm at. And I'm running because I'm a Canadian who cares about the country. And if you care about the country, you care about Alberta. And you should care enough to know that Albertans feel left out. So that's where I'm at.
Do you feel any other candidate is as concerned, or at least has addressed with policy directly the concerns of Albertans quite like you have?
Well, and I say this with respect to the other candidates. I wanted to run a campaign based on content and issues and ideas. I just don't want to show up in Alberta and say to folks, listen, I'm gonna represent you, period, and walk away. Albertans deserve better than that. I think in this leadership race, Albertans deserve to hear ideas and what we're going to do, as opposed to just showing up and saying I'm from Alberta or not from. That's what the leadership race is about. It's about respecting that imperative of delivering ideas. And I've done that in this leadership race. And the other thing I can deliver for Albertas is a national government on which they'll be at the table. And that, I believe, honestly, and without, a sense of pretension, that I'm the only candidate who will put Alberta at that table as in government. So I look forward to doing that.
So I'm joined now by another UCP leadership hopeful, Brian Jean. Brian, the first question I wanted to ask you is, day one, you're elected premier. What's your first order of business for Alberta?
The Sovereignty Act is not it. I'll tell you what it is. It is the Accountability Act. I think if we get government right and we get honesty in the leadership elections and the nominations and make sure that there's less issues with the integrity of the election process, I think all Albertans will feel much better about what comes out of that.
So you do have concerns about perhaps how some of the things have been conducted in the past, and that it would go a long way to restoring Albertans' faith if those were remedied?
I think that there's nothing more important than your elected officials. You're electing 87 people that represent you and that are supposed to take what you want to happen to the premier and to the cabinet, and the caucus is supposed to keep them in check. And I think making sure that we have honesty in that process and that all the people in Alberta have the opportunity to run if they're so qualified to do so, and they're qualified on the basis of whether they're chosen. Yeah. So we need open nominations. We need to make sure that people have the ability to compete for this incredible prize, which is to be able to represent the people of Alberta and fight for their values and what they want, and that's what I want to do.
Now, one of the big concerns for many people out there, and in the minds of many, the reason Jason Kenney will not be carrying on as leader was his COVID-19 response. Would you be willing to commit to ending prosecution, extending from COVID-19 restrictions and mandates just flat out?
I will tell you, first of all, I think it went way too far, and far too many rights were restricted, and we'll be talking about that in the future, but I want to be clear that we need to unify Albertans. We need to focus on the things that bring us together, the 99% that we love about Alberta and our future. And right now, I think that's the most important thing is to build unity in the province, to build unity in the party, to build unity in the caucus, and to focus on that. And my campaign, if you have an opportunity to see on brianjean.ca, is all about making sure that we have autonomy. Mm-hmm. Autonomy for Albertans, but that means your body, your choice. Autonomy for Albertans on personal finances. It means you own things. They're yours, they're not somebody else's. Mm-hmm. Autonomy on the community, your community, whether it is the community of Calgary, the community that you belong to as a Christian or a Sikh or a Muslim person of faith, or a community just in Fort McMurray, a Trappers Convention. You should have the ability to have your values and your priorities as the decision-making process in your life. And that's what it's all about for me. And of course, the most important one for me is autonomy for Albertans within Canada. And I think it's very important that Albertans get autonomy, not just Alberta. We don't want to build walls. What we want to do is build more opportunities for Albertans across the world, and especially in Alberta. And I'm going to offer them that freedom, and that autonomy will be theirs.
So you mentioned sort of your body, your choice. Final question. I know you got to run here. Some people feel as though some of the people still stuck behind bars, Tamara Leach, one of them, that autonomy was attacked. Do you feel as Premier you could address that sort of hurt, not just moving forward, but sort of retroactively with what we're seeing?
Well, it's hard for me to, I would ask you this question. Does it not appear to you that Tamara is a political prisoner? Because right now it certainly appears, I think, to most Canadians that that's the situation. I practiced criminal law for 10 years, and I never have seen a situation where somebody that is charged for instigating mischief is treated so seriously. I've seen people with very serious crimes that won't even be extradited between one province and another because of the cost associated with it. And here we have the government really trying to make an example of her, and I don't think that's helpful at all.
So I'm now joined by UCP leadership hopeful Rebecca Schulz. I wanted to ask you, on your website, it talks a lot about sort of returning politics to the people, ending the elitism out there. I know for lots of people, obviously most people are probably sick about talking about this, but some of the double standards, people lost their livelihoods, kind of went through hell, and some politicians basically did the same exact behavior, sort of exempting themselves. There's no consequences. What do you think Alberta needs to do to move forward and heal from that and get back to business?
First of all, what I say is it starts with our team. We have an amazing team of MLAs that are skilled, they're talented, they're hardworking, and they want to be united, but they want to know that their voice and that of their constituents is heard at the decision-making table. That is important. It's important to me to rebuild our team. And if sorry. If we can do that, then we can do that right across the province. And so one of my first commitments was to go to door knock in 87 constituencies right across the province, meet with every single constituency association board chair and all of the volunteers. And it's, you know what, here's the thing. I don't think I hear people saying, I want to agree with every, or expect to agree with every decision that government is going to make. I don't think people are saying that, but they want a voice at the table. The concern is around how decisions are made, how they are communicated. And we need to hear that perspective. It's what gives us the information that we need as elected officials to ask the right questions and to make the right decisions.
One last question. On the sort of COVID-19 response, everyone from Jason Kenney to Jason Kenney's staunchest critics would agree that some things went wrong. We'd probably mostly agree that some of the prosecution seems maybe politically inspired, not putting those words in your mouth. Would you commit to ending ongoing prosecution from COVID-19 mandates and restrictions?
You know, and here's what we hear. Like, there has been so many different ideas, different positions when it came to COVID. It has been a very difficult 2 years. What I would say is I always do believe that people need to stand up and express their opinions. I think that matters. Like, that's why we have laws protecting peaceful protest and people to have their voices heard. I think also, you know, it's important that people follow the law, but I also most importantly feel like governments can't get involved in the legal system. Either way, right? We've got to leave that up. That's up to the legal system. It's a slippery slope when politicians start getting involved in the law.
And so is your opinion that politicians weren't involved at all and that the sort of coincidental, seemingly targeted prosecution of some individuals was strictly within the judicial system?
You know, I would say, I mean, obviously, I have been part of this government, and I am the first to say that we didn't do everything right during COVID. And I know probably most of my colleagues would say the same thing. I think it's important to look at what we know as we come out of this pandemic, and I think we've seen a lot of divisive discussions. We need to realize that as conservatives, we've had a lot of different opinions, not just about COVID, but about a number of different things over the last 2 years. And the opponent is not each other. Yeah. It is the NDP in 2023. We've got to get reelected. We've got to move past this. I've also had some people ask, do you want to do a COVID review? Yeah, I'm happy to do that, but I also really want to focus on fixing the healthcare system so we're never in a situation like this again.
So what's business item number one, day one, if you're elected premier?
You know, it's funny because a lot of people ask me that. First, for me, it starts with unity. So it starts with sitting down with our team and talking about what are our goals? What is this team going to look like? You know, coming from where we've come from, what does this team look like? How do we make sure that we have diversity of thought and opinion and the freedom to speak our minds and speak the perspectives of our constituents, but also show that discipline that's going to be required to move forward and earn the trust of Albertans in the next election. So that will be item number one. We've also got some pretty exciting policies coming out when it comes to our fiscal policy, where everybody wants to know, what are you going to do with the surplus? I'm a fiscal conservative, so I say save the surplus, but invest in some of the things that are top of mind for people, like affordability, education, healthcare. I don't believe needs any additional funding, but definitely needs some change.
So I'm now joined by a leadership hopeful for the United Conservative Party, Travis Toews. Last time I got the opportunity to ask you a sort of a very critical question, but now I want to get into something maybe a little bit more within your specialty, and that's bringing rural folks into the fold as a leader. Very often people feel, whether it be Alberta on the federal front or the rural communities on the provincial front, people feel excluded. What is your plan to ensure that those folks are represented and brought into the fold?
Yeah, that's a great question. You know, as I've traveled around Alberta, so many Albertans, and especially, you know, conservative-minded Albertans, feel they haven't had a voice these last couple of years, feel their views haven't been heard. It's been so important for me to get around and just listen to Albertans. I think that's, you know, mission critical right now. To listen to Albertans, to make sure they feel heard. And for our conservative movement, it's a matter of pulling people back in. You know what? Some folks in our movement feel labeled. They feel mischaracterized. They feel that they don't belong in this movement anymore. I've made it a point to extend a call home to those conservative Albertans, again, who might feel labeled. You know what? We're stronger together. We need to stick together in our Big Tent Conservative Party. We do that. I'm very confident that we can present a very viable, in fact, by far the most attractive governing option for Albertans next spring.
That was actually my next question, so it segues perfectly. Very often on this big tent front, that's a term that's very used in a blanket sense, but very often what you see is, whether it be pro-life, conservatives or conservatives whose principal concern is vaccine mandates, let's say, those people, while it's called Big Tent, they're thrust to the margins. What's your plan to ensure that those maybe marginalized voices are also included?
Well, listen, every voice within our tent is important, and we're less than if in fact we don't have every voice at the table. That's my view. I mean, I'm a social conservative. That's who I am, and yet I respect the fact that we have a lot of great people that hold diverse views on a lot of those topics, and I respect that. And we need every voice at the table. And again, I know there are some Albertans who feel core to our movement, that have been core to the unity effort, that feel marginalized, that feel labeled. I'm extending a call home to those members.
And sorry, final question. What do you have a sort of practical, lots of people can say that, but do you have a practical plan in mind once, let's say you win, you're the leader of this province, to do that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, firstly, I'm going around the province listening. And I did that following budget 2022, the balanced budget. I toured the province and spent a lot of time in rural Alberta listening to Albertans. Even during COVID in my constituency, I would hold town halls in backyards and farmyards. People needed to express their views. I needed to hear those views. I would continue with that. But more than that, I would also manage caucus in a very different way, because you know what? Albertans ultimately get their views represented through their MLAs. Caucus members need a great opportunity to pound the table and advocate for the views of their constituents at the caucus table. I would change the way we do things. I would, at the start of every term or session, I would have a caucus retreat where shoulder to shoulder, all government caucus members identify the priorities and initiatives for the government in the next term. We would develop policy together, which was critically important, and I would ensure there are caucus meetings where caucus members can bring divergent views, because I will invite divergent views. I will not penalize divergent views. My leadership style will be very different. That's critically important to me.
I'm sure Drew Barnes, Todd Lowe, and folks like that would appreciate that. Just because you brought it up, the balanced budget, great, wonderful news, a surplus. In fact, many people have questions, though. There's reportedly a $4 billion sort of missing amount on COVID spending. Do you have any information on that?
Yeah, there's no missing amount on COVID spending. Those amounts were used for personal protective equipment. Those amounts were used to support our seniors' homes, continuing care homes. All of those funds were accounted for. We got a clean audit report from the Auditor General, which proves that.
Where did those reports come from then?
Ultimately, there's some additional detail coming, which is going to be great for transparency. That detail will be coming from ministries, but in terms of ultimately accounting for every expenditure, all of that was done in a transparent way, and the clean audit report proves it.
So I'm now joined by MLA Ric McIver. Ric, how are you doing? First of all, beautiful day out here for the Stampede breakfast.
Yoo-hoo! You know what? It's Stampede. So everybody should be having a good time now. Got a great turnout here. Bunch of MLAs out meeting our bosses. It's a great day to be right where we are.
That's awesome. So lots of fun going on now. Obviously, Stampede breakfast, always a bit of a political angle. As an MLA, do you think that there's sort of a principal issue that Albertans are concerned with right now that needs to be addressed, particularly by a potential leader moving forward?
Well, they got to be concerned about fiscal discipline. About the cost of living is very high on people's radar right now. And all the important issues, healthcare, education, there's probably, if you talk to 100 voters, you might get 100 different answers. So we have to be prepared to listen to everybody and to bring their concerns together.
And have you officially endorsed someone as a leadership candidate so far?
No, I have not. And I'm not sure if that'll happen or not at this point.
So I guess first off, we're here. It's a Stampede breakfast. So what's it like to be out here with all these folks?
Well, it's fantastic. It's a great summer day. Stampede is kicked off in Calgary, and it's great that we can be all here together and celebrate the Stampede, the first full Stampede since COVID.
I hate to ask you to work while you're here. I know this is supposed to be a little bit of fun, but are there any plans to sort of continue addressing some of the ambulance shortages and issues that we're seeing right across the province prevalently? I know some work has been done with RJ Sigurdsson, but is anything else sort of on the docket to address that concern?
You bet. Well, we started off with, AHS with their 10-point plan. We appointed the advisory committee. Their interim report is on my desk right now. We've already actually, but we wanted to move forward. If there's ideas that we think we could work, let's put it in place. We've actually already done that. They're continuing, a final report will be coming in out this summer. Plus, as part of budget 2022, additional $64 million investment. So we actually have 9 additional ambulances already on the streets in Calgary and Edmonton. Like that was as of the end of last month. We understand that there's still pressure on the system, but we're doing everything we can, and quite frankly, more is coming.
Another concern on the forefront for very many people, obviously last year at the Stampede breakfast, we heard there would be no vaccine mandate. That was not even on the table, maybe the year before that rather. Is there a possibility that that is coming back, or do we now have assurances people won't be terminated, people won't lose out on their livelihoods based on their vaccination status?
Yeah, so we need to learn to live with COVID, right? And so there's a number of pieces that in that, like vaccination, is definitely helpful. It's been helpful for us in terms of reducing the impact on our healthcare system. We know that they work against severe outcomes, and so we'll be looking at potentially rolling out the fourth doses for those who actually need that. So that's on the radar screen. But when you take a look at the science, typically what happens when we go through pandemics like this is that even though the next wave may be more virulent in the sense that you can transmit it easier, it's actually less severe. And we've actually seen that with Omicron. Like we just got through our 6th wave with the second wave of Omicron, and strain on the hospitals, but we've been able to get through that with minimal items that government needed to put in, right, in terms of guidance. So I'm hopeful that will continue to be able to move in that manner. And we're also building capacity because we know that one of the challenges is we need capacity in our healthcare system. So I think with vaccines, with building capacities, with having more treatments available. So Paxlovid, for example, is out there right now. We won't need to go down that road, but quite frankly, we're getting ready in terms of building capacity, ensuring that we can run a campaign to make sure everyone who wants to get vaccinated can get vaccinated, and we highly recommend that. So we're getting ready for the fall, and it may even be the summer. Who knows? We don't know what we don't know, but we're looking forward. We're putting the pieces in place, and really our focus is on protecting Albertans while having a minimal impact on our ability to do things like this.
And so folks who don't want to get vaccinated, though, not talking about the efficacy or anything, but just for those folks who don't want to get vaccinated, will they be pressured again to do so?
So again, we've made changes to the Public Health Act, taking out the requirement, or the ability to actually make people get vaccinated, right? We're still going to be urging people to get vaccinated because we know it's effective against severe outcome, and it can help manage our healthcare system. But at the end of the day, it's going to be a choice that Albertans going to make. We made that clear before. It'll be clear, make that clear in the future. But again, we're still going to urge people to do that because we know, 90% of people have chosen to, over 90% of the people have chosen to do that. We know that it's effective against severe outcome.
And finally, and then I'll let you go, have you effectively or officially endorsed anybody for the leadership of the UCP moving forward?
Yeah, I've endorsed Rebecca Schulz. I think she's the leader for tomorrow. Will bring a great point of view, a consensus leadership style. But I'm very pleased that we have a range of candidates that are running to show the breadth and width of our conservative movement, and we'll be able to continue towards renewal and be able to move forward as a party and as a government. But yes, as I was saying, I'm supporting Rebecca Schulz.
Joined by former MLA Ric Fraser here. Ric, what's the mood like here at this event, Stampede Breakfast? Everyone's coming together. What's your experience been like so far?
It's been amazing, actually. The last 2-3 days, it's been nice to see Albertans get back out and connect, and I think not only is it great for the province, but it's great for people. It's great for their mental health, their spirituality, and so it's been nice.
So we're obviously in the midst of a big UCP leadership race. Yeah. I don't know if you've officially endorsed anybody, but if you have, please let us know. And what do you think is the sort of most important issue that a future leader would have to nail?
Well, I think at the end of the day, it's really important to empower people, and that leadership. Premier Kenney, I think, has done the best that he could during a challenging time when it came to COVID. But one person can't do it all themselves, and so whether you empower your cabinet and your caucus to get out there and do the work and build future leaders in our community. And I see that. So we have an opportunity now to take what we've learned from COVID, what it's been like to experience that now. And, what do we need to do differently? How do we empower our communities to take care of themselves? And we saw that in High River. The minute you empowered people and gave them the tools that they needed, they're going to go do the work. So government doesn't always need to be doing the work. And so from that perspective, it's an opportunity to see how we can do things better.
And is there a candidate that you feel sort of representing that best or not yet necessarily?
I think there's a lot of people, former colleagues like Brian and Danielle. I've spent quite a bit of time with Danielle, and I think there's some great candidates, and I think we still have some time to hear what their platform is going to be and what they're going to speak about. But ultimately, what I'll be looking for is, if I endorse somebody who's going to empower people and empower their, the people that got elected to go out there and do the work on behalf of Alberta.
One of the big concerns for folks, particularly with that Western sort of Stampede mentality, is a little bit of sovereignty, a little bit of independence for Alberta. You're working on an initiative advocating for a provincial police force to effectively replace the RCMP. People have been wanting that for a long time. Was it actually sort of like a tangible reality now?
Well, yeah, this is a point I've been making to Albertans, that people have been talking about this since I was in high school. I'm now in my mid-40s. People have been wanting to have this conversation about how we can improve civilian oversight over the complaints process, over budgeting, be able to have the local decision-making abilities, improve as well forensics, having forensics being done here in Alberta. All these benefits, trying to talk to Albertans and explain to them what the benefits might be. And we're going to continue to be able to talk with Albertans about that over the summer. No decisions are going to be made, though. I think Premier Kenney has made it clear until his retirement in October, no major policy shifts. But I'll keep on consulting with Albertans and then leave the file for the next government.
Now, this story does connect a little bit, maybe not directly, but do you have any concerns in the position of Ministry of Justice over the arrest of Tamara Leach and the fact that she's still being held in custody, very much sort of plucked out of Alberta and dragged out east?
Well, I'm not going to comment on anything that's before the courts right now, just as a justice minister.
Okay. And then finally, have you officially announced sort of a support for a candidate for the leadership of the UCP at this time, or are there any that are sort of capturing your interest?
Well, I got the button on. Yeah. I'm supporting Travis, yeah.
And what's the reason you're supporting Travis out of all the candidates?
Travis has really impressed me over the last 3 years as being a guy who's just really focused on, he didn't become a politician for him. He did this for other people. To be able to unite our caucus. He's got the respect of a wide diversity of folks in our membership and in caucus. And I think for us going into 2023, the number one thing is going to be staying united and not further division among us.
So I'm actually joined now by a member of Pastor Tim Stevens' church. Pastor Tim Stevens, as you likely recall, spent quite a bit of time behind bars for daring to oppose COVID-19 restrictions. Things starting to open up again. Obviously, largely what happened to pastors and the COVID-19 response, likely a major contributing factor to the fact that Jason Kenney is no longer leader. Are any of the other leadership candidates for the UCP sort of speaking to you or capturing your interest moving forward?
I get updates from Danielle Smith's email, and I like her push for sovereignty for the province of Alberta and for independence. I know that she has spoken to James Coates in the past and spoke on behalf of James Coates to the Premier on her radio show, and that's one of the most compelling things to me. As for the other candidates, I haven't done a ton of research, but I know that Todd Loewen was kicked out of caucus for standing up against the province's COVID-19 mandates, and so he would be close to the top of my list. There are a lot of people out here pushing for Travis Toews, and I think Travis is just right there. I've yet to meet him and talk to him, and I'm going to be perfectly blunt and ask him and say, look, I am a member of this church, and my pastor was in jail for 3 days in May and 18 days in June of last year, and that's a great concern to me. And I'm just going to ask him, do you stand for true liberty of conscience? Do you stand for this biblical separation of church and state? Do you stand for the kingship and the dominion of Christ Jesus over and against tyranny and arbitrary rule in our province?
Well, the action is carrying on here and people are enjoying their pancakes. We had the opportunity to talk to many MLAs, former MLAs, and even UCP leadership hopefuls here today. So it was great to get their perspectives and ask them some tough questions, get the other side of the story. I hope you enjoyed this, and as always, I want to thank you all so much for tuning in. For Rebel News, I'm Adam Soos. Well, the Stampede spirit is alive and well, and these folks are among those considering who they will have as their leader moving forward under the United Conservative Party banner. To make sure you're informed and can make an informed decision, go to ucpleadership.com.